Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4 have finally been released after 4 long years of waiting, and with them came one of the most lore-heavy sections in the entire game. Included within Chapter 4 is a section where we learn about the Darkner's prophecy, which is a different prophecy than the one we learned about through the game's opening scene. For a refresher, the original prophecy goes as follows. Once upon a time, a legend was whispered among shadows. It was a legend of hope, it was a legend of dreams, it was a legend of light, it was a legend of dark. This is the legend of Deltarune. For millennia, light and dark have lived in balance, bringing peace to the world. But if this harmony were to shatter, a terrible calamity would occur. The sky will run black with terror, and the land will crack with fear. Then, her heart pounding, the earth will draw her final breath. Only then, a shining with hope, 3 heroes appear at world's edge. A human, a monster, and a prince from the dark. Only they can seal the fountains and banish the angels' heaven. Only then will balance be restored and the world saved from destruction. Within Chapter 4, we learn that this legend actually gets far more specific in the Darkner version. Ralsei tells us that he knows the entire prophecy by heart, and that it's very accurate and specific to the 3 heroes' current situation. This is interesting to me, however, because I feel there's a very obvious detail that should have piqued Ralsei's curiosity. During Chapter 4, after Susie creates her own dark world in the church, we see a description of the 3 heroes. The last hero, the monster, has an image below it that does not really look like Susie. Notice the sword, notice the cloak they wear. These aren't traits that are associated with Susie. Even during my initial playthrough, I noticed that these details fit another character much better, Noelle. Even the other details of the prophecy regarding the hero fit Noelle as well as Susie. Love making its way to her heart, a detail which we will get back to in a moment, which could apply to either one of them since they both find each other. Regarding the sword, you're probably thinking that this doesn't apply to Noelle either, since her weapons are typically rings. However, it was discovered Noelle could use both the black shard dropped by the knight and the jingle blade. If you remember, there was actually a scene towards the end of the chapter where Ralsei admits he knows what items Noelle can equip, to which Susie relents that Ralsei knows Jack. Though, since Ralsei apparently knows what's going to happen, he should know Susie isn't the one from the prophecy. After all, Ralsei knows that Noelle can equip the sword seen in the prophetic mural. That's the thing, I think Ralsei does know that Susie isn't the one from the prophecy. Ralsei refuses to tell Susie so that Ralsei doesn't hurt Susie's feelings, a sentiment Ralsei tells us personally after Susie shrugs off the prophecy's ending. This is why, at the end of the chapter, Ralsei is so worried that Susie might see the final bit of the prophecy. Either something happens to the girl, or the girl does something horrific. Ralsei knew that Susie wasn't actually involved, but couldn't tell her. It would crush her. After all, Susie tells us that she's never been picked for anything. It gives her purpose. If Ralsei told Susie this, Susie may not be her friend anymore, which would also cause Ralsei the same great pain. So after figuring this out, I was thinking what it can mean. What changes knowing Noelle is actually the girl from the prophecy? This is where I finally get to explain the reason for this video. I believe that the weird route and the normal route actually bring about 2 different versions of the prophecy. The normal route brings about the prophecy we hear about at the beginning of the game, where the 3 heroes seal the Dark Fountain and bring peace. Notice the original prophecy, the monsters very clearly representative Susie, there's no mistaking it. But the Darkner prophecy, the one brought about by the weird route, will bring about the roaring and cause calamity. I believe the Darkner prophecy, the weird route ending, will be Deltarune's genocide ending. Now of course, there is already one giant thorn, pun intended, in this theory's ass. That thorn is the fact that in Deltarune it is made very clear that our choices don't matter. At the very beginning of the game, our creation is discarded and we are outright told that our choices as the player mean nothing in this world. Even in the ending of Chapter 1, despite the fact we can choose to spare or kill all the enemies, the ending leads to the same outcome of the fountain being sealed and the king being imprisoned. So how could there be 2 endings if the choices we make lead to the same outcome? Well, I believe the answer to this question has already been told to us directly. In the Chapter 3 Shadow Mantle minigame, the mini-boss character fan-dubbed as ERAM tell us the following if we are playing in a Weird Route save file. Chris, oh Chris. Is it fun, Chris, playing around like this? That's why you're searching for them, aren't you? The shadow crystals, and the shadow mantle that I'm holding. Do you honestly think it will get you where you want? This is said no matter what route is being played, but there's a difference if you're only seeing the scene in the weird route. No, part of you is just enjoying this, isn't it? The same part of you that enjoyed yesterday, knowing you could say it wasn't really you. Oh, don't make that sour face. I can see in the dark, you know. The question is, can you? The most important line here is the one that says, the same part of you that enjoyed yesterday, knowing you could say it wasn't really you. I think this could mean 2 things. Since this is Weird Route only dialogue, I'm assuming that yesterday is referring to the events of the Weird Route in the Dark World. So with that in mind, I think that ERAM is implying that the wasn't really you means Chris could say that they weren't at fault for those who died. But if not Chris, then who? I believe it could either be us, the soul, or Noelle. For this theory, I'm going to roll with the fact that ERAM was referring to Noelle here. After all, if you think about it, Chris never really killed anyone in the weird route. Sure, we can act violently to the monsters, but they simply run away if their health gets too low. Noelle is the one that does the real damage, the one who kills the monsters. This is further backed up by the fact that Eram is very clearly talking to Chris here. He repeats it like 6 times. When Eram says, "that same part of you that enjoyed yesterday," they're referring to Chris, not the soul. In addition to this, the other areas leading up to this are all about the Forbidden Path and ice magic. We even have a small version of the Ice Mage follow us around and cast ice magic, at our own bidding, for a little while. Even while writing this video, I was listening to the soundtrack on Spotify, and noticed the Secret Areas theme come on. I went to check the name of the song, and what did I see it was called? Glacier. I feel like it doesn't get more on the nose than this. So again, how does this solve the fact that our choices don't matter? That's the thing, the game tells us that the player's choices don't matter. But maybe the other character's choices do. Maybe, since we, the player, can't have a lasting effect on this world, we can force another character to do so instead. Maybe, just maybe, the player is so determined to see the world crumble, to see everyone perish, just like we were in Undertale, that we can force our desired outcome to happen vicariously through Noelle. After all, we can say it wasn't really us. The choices we made didn't matter directly, but Noelle's did. We could say it wasn't really us. After all, Noelle finds love according to the prophecy, doesn't she? According to Undertale, love has a double meaning, level of violence. The only way to gain this, the only way to get stronger, is to kill the enemies we come across, just like we forced Noelle to do. Further evidence backing this theory up is the same prophecy we just went over from Chapter 4. One small detail I initially overlooked is the fact that there are multiple different murals of the girl from the prophecy. There are ones that are normal and ones that depict Noelle's heart shining through her. I thought this was interesting. After all, it looked almost like Noelle had a soul. But why would Noelle have a soul in some incarnations of the prophecy and some not? Well, that's just it. In one outcome of the prophecy, the Lightner version, Noelle helps us seal the dark fountains and all is well and good. But in other versions, Noelle gains a soul. Our soul. Us. It's not literal, it's symbolic. The fact that we, the soul, vicariously control Noelle through Chris. Noelle eventually gains our soul, our determination. Now, let's take a pause here and talk about the other half of the theory. As you saw from the title, it's called the Determined Angel Theory. But there's a part of this we haven't talked about yet, the angel. I'm just going to go right out and say it, I think that the player is the angel. I'll be honest, there isn't a whole ton of evidence to support this, but I'll go over the biggest one here first. In Chapter 4, there's a section where the angel actually gets its own prophetic mural. The mural reads, "The angel, banished, will finally meet with its desire." The picture for the mural is covered up by something, making the image appear completely black. When interacting with it, Susie says, "Hey," below the words, "that picture, what the hell is that supposed to be?" Ralse replies, That's the angel, Susie, what to my understanding it actually looks like." Susie looks confused and shocked. I don't know about that, man. If you try interacting with it again, the text, "It's a prophecy," looking at it made you feel strange. You did not investigate further. Notice again how the mural is completely blocked by darkness. If you look closely, past the game, but actually into your computer screen, you can see something in the darkness. It's your reflection. You see yourself. Not Chris, but you, the player. That's why Susie is so confused by the image. It's an image of an actual human being from the real world, a concept foreign to these pixel characters. Of course, this is a big stretch, as maybe from the character's perspective things look normal, but still, I think if the image was of Noelle, they wouldn't have this reaction. I suppose it could also be a picture of Gaster with his messed up face, but I think that the other evidence I'll be presenting points away from this. For example, when you're in the basement of the holiday house, and you need to hide from Noelle and Susie, you bump into the Christmas tree and are covered by an angel tree topper. I feel like this one again is pretty on the nose. Furthermore, the last bit of evidence I'd like to talk about here is the line, "Let the angel's power light your way," said by Alvin outside the church. What power might he be talking about here? Well, what is the soul's special power? The power to save. We know this from Undertale, only those who are the most determined get to save. That is the light inside your soul that is being referenced. Now with all that in mind, let's return to the original prophecy. There was always one line, even way back in 2018, that stuck out to me. That line is to banish the angel's heaven. It was always strange to me, doesn't the angel's heaven sound like a good thing? Why is it something we'd want to banish? Well, based on what we've talked about, what would be the angel's heaven? Not their literal heaven above the clouds, but a heaven. To me, this use of heaven reads more like what a haven might be, the ideal world for the one who seeks it. So in this case, what's the soul's ideal world? Well, it depends on the route. If you play the regular route, your desire is the one where everyone lives happily ever after. But in the prophecy, the one that the weird route follows, it's the same as our desire in Undertale. to get stronger, to kill everyone and everything around us and become the ultimate bringer of destruction. In Deltarune, we are the Roaring. We will use and manipulate Noelle to break free of our predisposition of having no choices, bringing about the same destruction from Undertale. Again, we as the player are so determined to bring the world to ruin, so determined to see everything this universe has to offer, that we are able to bend the rules of Gaster's universe. Now, I think it's possible that the genocide ending of Undertale directly references this. After all, the last lines from Kara read, "Let us erase this pointless world and move on to the next." Kara explains that they are the feeling that we get when a number goes up, when we gain more love, experience, gold. All of those things, that is Kara. Kara is not a character in the normal sense, so who's to say that the presence of Kara doesn't carry over to this world too? It's the same feeling. Killing the enemies with Noelle brings the same sense of power as you do in the genocide route of Undertale. I'm not saying it's perfectly guaranteed, but I think it's possible Kara could make another appearance in Deltarune. Regardless, that's the conclusion of the theory. We are using Noelle as our vessel to bring the Absolute, to use our determination to bring about the end of the world. That is what the Roaring is. Now, I'd say that the theory mostly wraps up there, but right before writing the script, I was talking to a friend of mine who doesn't really play Deltarune, but he's one who loved Undertale when it was popular back in 2016. As I was explaining all of this to him, he made a very good point about the many biblical allusions that can be drawn from the chapters so far, and how it all plays very nicely with the theory of the player having two different versions of the prophecy. To start, there's the imagery of the crucifixion of Noelle at the end of Chapter 2, and of course the thorn ring, which to my friend seemed to be a very obvious allusion to the crown of thorns worn by Jesus. That is all stuff from Chapter 2, but in this chapter there's even more. Of course, the fact that all of Chapter 4 takes place in the Church's Dark World was enough to get me thinking about any other connections, and my friend brought up something I had never heard discussed among the Deltarune community. Now, before I go on with this, I don't consider myself to be a religious person, so any allusions made is based on my own research. I don't mean to offend or try to simplify anyone's faith, I'm just processing this information as it was presented to me. Anyway, in the Bible, there is a description of Satan which stuck out very much to me. The Bible verse 2 Corinthians 11:14 reads, "And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light." An angel of light. Now, where have we heard that before? I mean, come on, it's right there. There's a light inside your soul, is literally the first line of Don't Forget. There's also, it's as if your very soul was glowing. I mean, at the end of Chapter 4, the light from your soul literally protects the rest of the heroes from the night, and it's the way that you seal the dark fountains. Another group of verses that stuck out to me in my research was Matthew 14:1-11. Now, I'm not going to read the whole verse out loud, but you can pause and read it on screen if you'd like. To summarize, Jesus and Satan are out in the wilderness, and Satan attempts to manipulate Jesus by offering him the kingdoms of the world and their splendor, essentially offering him riches and power. Let's think back again. The fallen angel of light attempting to manipulate a pure soul who is eventually said to be crucified in an effort to grant that pure soul power. In my opinion, it could not be any clearer. The fallen angel of light is the player. Noelle is meant to be Jesus. They were crucified, they wore the thorn ring, and they were tempted by Satan into gaining power and bloodlust. We are literally the devil attempting to creep its way back into control by manipulating the most pure being in the world. It's literally right there in plain text. Now, what does this mean for the rest of the story? I'm not really sure, but I hope it could give some insight as to where the story might be headed. Maybe the last prophecy Susie saw was Noelle being killed, and maybe it was even at the hands of us, the fallen angel. So to recap this last bit, the Angel of Light is one of the Bible's many ways of referring to Satan. Satan is well known for being someone who manipulates and deceives, just as we, the player, otherwise known as the angel with a light inside our soul, do to Noelle in Chapter 2. Noelle is pictured to wear a white, pure robe, is depicted being crucified, and wears a ring of thorns. All things also reminiscent of the depictions of Jesus from the Bible. Before, it was merely hinted at, but all this together could very well be the story of Deltarune. We can either become the true angel and help bring peace to the world, or we could fall down and become the embodiment of the devil, bringing about the Roaring, which, by the way, as I'm recording this, is very clearly meant to be the Rapture. Now, with that in mind, let's think back to the angel's prophetic mural. Again, it reads, "The angel banished will finally meet with its desire." What does this mean in the context of the theory? I think that banished will refer to Chris banishing us from their body, the cage. Where would we go from here? I think it's possible we could directly control Noelle. Maybe this was even foreshadowed in the Mantle minigame where Susie switches around the controller ports. I think that this also ties back to Noelle's mural, the one depicting her with a soul. I think that the desire portion of the mural represents the Roaring, the desire to see the world crumble. That is the determined angel theory. Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. I've never written a theory video before, so if maybe I missed something that either further proves or even disproves the theory, let me know in the comments. I don't know how many other theory videos I'll be making, so don't subscribe anticipating more videos like this, but who knows, maybe I'll change my mind. Anyway, sometimes I'll livestream myself making video games, and I have a Pokemon VR project that should be coming out pretty soon, so subscribe if that's something you're interested in. Anyway, take care.